Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is pretty laser focused. We're taking everything swirling around from the MAICON 2025 conference in Cleveland and translating it, making it a strategic roadmap just for you, the community bank executive or the marketing director listening in. We get the core challenge you're facing. AI adoption, well, it's not theoretical anymore, is it? It's an immediate business thing.
Absolutely, it's here.
But speed, that often feels like the enemy in banking. You've got these ironclad, non-negotiable requirements: compliance, security, data governance, risk.
Things that just don't exist in the same way in, say, a tech startup.
Exactly. So our goal today is to pull out the really critical strategic nuggets, the stuff vetted from the observations and notes Eric Cook of WSI and the Link Banker gathered. We want to give you that path to way forward, without drowning in information. And, crucially, without putting your bank's compliance posture at risk. That's paramount.
That's exactly right. And what's really fascinating about these MAICON notes is how they shift the whole conversation. It's not just basic, what is AI anymore? It's about systematic implementation. We're not talking about using one cool tool one time.
Right.
We're really laying out the blueprint for that necessary organizational shift. The systematic plan to stop using AI like a series of party tricks and start making it a core, measurable business function. That's the journey, really. The only essential path to becoming what they call an AI-forward institution.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Starting with, it has to start with a fundamental shift in mindset, doesn't it?
It does.
Because you just can't tackle this kind of transformation with yesterday's organizational thinking.
Oh.
So let's begin with the immediate stuff. The tangible impact that makes an executive say, okay, this investment makes sense. Mike Caput's session on AI productivity, it had some, frankly, stunning examples of capacity gains. We're talking way beyond just saving a few minutes here and there.
Oh, yeah, quantum leaps in output.
His notes mentioned a small team, like 15 people, going from a certain output level to achieving 3, 4, even 5 times the productivity of a similar team, not using a structured AI system.
And there are hard numbers we can tie to workflows that are, pretty relevant for banking. Think about content production, maybe regulatory review stuff. The example they used was podcast production, something lots of bank marketing teams do monthly. The whole workflow went from needing, get this, 32 hours a week down to just 8 hours.
Wow, that's a 75% time saving on one recurring thing.
Week after week. Now imagine translating that kind of efficiency gain to, say, loan file preparation, or drafting disclosures, or even internal audit reviews.
You're suddenly freeing up huge chunks of time, maybe even entire FTEs worth of time.
Exactly. Freeing them up to focus on client relationships or the really complex compliance judgment calls. These numbers show AI isn't just trimming minutes, it's collapsing entire timelines.
But, and this is the big but, those impressive gains, they only happen if you move past what was called the soloist problem. That sounds like the first major hurdle for a lot of places.
That analogy is, I think, absolutely critical if you want to scale this across an organization. The soloist, that's the brilliant person, maybe in marketing or IT, who gets really good with 1 or 2 tools. Maybe they master the latest ChatGPT version, or they can whip up a social media graphic super fast with an AI image tool.
Yeah, we all know that person.
Right. But their productivity, it eventually plateaus. There's only so much one person can do alone, and the growth isn't scalable because all that knowledge, all that skill, it's trapped with that one individual. The conductor, though, that's different. The conductor understands the orchestra analogy. This leader, they focus on building a unified system, something repeatable, centrally managed. They integrate lots of different AI tools and processes. Those are the instruments in the orchestra working together in harmony across different roles, different departments. This systemic approach, that's the only way you get those long-term, scalable gains that actually transform every single part of your work, way beyond just one person's effort.
And that, right there, that's the pivot point for community banks, isn't it?
Yeah.
This isn't about teaching one loan officer how to draft an email with ChatGPT once.
Yeah.
It's about creating systems that transform how marketing, compliance, lending, operations, how they all work together using verified compliant inputs. It's systemic, enterprise-wide, and it has to start at the executive level.
And that need for systemic change, it's made really urgent by Paul Retzer's session. He called this the Move 37 moment for knowledge workers.
Move 37, like the Go game?
Exactly. Referencing that pivotal 2016 AlphaGo match where the 37th move just fundamentally changed the game of Go forever. It was something no human saw coming. For knowledge workers, especially in regulated fields like banking, that moment is basically now. AI is rapidly shifting from just being a tool to becoming, well, kind of the underlying operating system for business and maybe society.
I think we need to pause on that urgency for a second. It's driven by these scaling laws of AI, right?
We absolutely must, because we humans, we tend to think linearly. We expect next year's progress to be kind of like last year's, but AI advances, they're exponential, they're accelerating. Retzer shared this really staggering statistic. Just 7 months ago, the top AI models had about a 50% chance of successfully doing a task in 30 minutes that would take an expert human 1 hour.
Half the time. Still impressive.
Right. But now, 7 months later, that completion time for the same task isn't 30 minutes, it's down to 8 minutes.
In 8 minutes. From 30 in 7 months.
That exponential speed up, it means the definition of AGI, artificial general intelligence, an AI system that can generally outperform the average human at most cognitive tasks. Well, that's on a near-term path to reality. This isn't science fiction anymore.
And this is why the focus has to be strategic, not just technical.
Right. AGI, when it arrives, isn't necessarily coming for your top expert, your chief compliance officer with 30 years experience, or your best wealth manager. It's targeting the average knowledge worker doing routine, repetitive stuff, or cognitive synthesis tasks.
Like what in a bank context?
Well, think about all the tasks done every single day in underwriting initial applications, or basic risk assessment checks, or routine compliance monitoring report generation, dozens and dozens of tasks.
That's profound. So if AGI is targeting the average knowledge worker, does that mean executives should immediately focus on, say, automating basic customer service chats first, or maybe high-risk lending decisions? How do you prioritize?
The executive focus can't be about avoiding AI or just picking the easiest department to automate. It really has to be about prioritizing AI literacy across the entire leadership team. And then critically, identifying the opportunities to disrupt your own internal work processes. Where's the time really going? Where are the bottlenecks? Before a competitor, or maybe a completely new fintech player, does it to you. Jeff Woods really hit this point. The biggest threat to your bank might not actually be the competition down the street. It might be how your own leadership is currently thinking about organizational capacity and change.
Which loops back to what you said earlier. This responsibility shifts. It's not just IT's problem to solve anymore. It's the CEO's job.
Absolutely.
This leadership evolution, it's about using AI to pivot. To go from spending, say, 80% of your executive time on tactical stuff, drafting reports, summarizing meetings, chasing data,
Heavy work.
to spending maybe only 20% on that and 80% on the truly strategic things. Innovation, team development, deep competitive analysis. AI gives you the capacity for that shift almost immediately.
But here's the critical executive challenge with making that 80-20 shift real. It only works if you use AI as a high-level thought partner, not just a task completer. That's where something like the CRIT framework comes into play. Context, role, interview, task. You can actually use AI as an advanced strategic partner, like a co-CEO almost.
How so?
To synthesize massive amounts of market data, generate non-obvious strategies you hadn't considered, challenge your internal assumptions about risk or market opportunity.
Okay, using AI as a thought partner sounds powerful, but the output, it's still coming from an AI. What's the absolute non-negotiable guardrail here for bank leaders, especially with strategy?
The fundamental guardrail is, and honestly always will be, human in the loop, HITL, full stop. When you use AI to analyze a potential new market entry or maybe challenge your current credit risk models, you're expanding your strategic options. That's good. But you never ever just trust the first answer blindly. You have to challenge it, refine it, verify the source data it used. And then you apply your own strategic judgment, your own experience, especially when compliance is involved or you're talking about allocating significant capital. Human oversight is key.
Okay, so if the conductor mindset is the why, let's get into the practical how. Section 2 is about building that actual productivity engine across the whole organization. This means standardizing things, centralizing AI inputs. What are those essential building blocks? How do you scale AI use for the whole team, not just that one brilliant soloist?
It really starts with consistency and systematic inputs. High-performance prompting is the absolute foundation, and that needs a structured approach, not just random questions into ChatGPT. We can break this down into 3 key parts, and they're all linked. The prompt framework, knowledge blocks, or KBs, and the prompt library, so the prompt framework. This just ensures you consistently hit the 5 essential components you need for excellent output. Output that's also compliant, which is critical here. Those 5 parts are role, task, context, examples, and format. Let's maybe apply this to a typical banking task. Say you need to draft an explanation for customers about some changes in Regulation B compliance. The role defines the AI's persona. You'd tell it. You are a licensed financial communication specialist. You have a deep understanding of Regulation B and consumer lending disclosure rules. Sets the expertise. The task is just what to do. Draft a clear, empathetic email to our mortgage customers explaining these required disclosure changes. Simple instruction. Now, context is crucial. This provides the necessary background and, importantly, the constraints. You'd absolutely need to include specific regulatory language constraints here, maybe even reference the bank's current risk tolerance statement.
Got it. The guardrails.
Exactly. Examples help the AI understand the desired tone you want, professional but simple, maybe provide a previous successful email. And format just specifies the structure. Keep it to 3 short paragraphs, use this specific subject line.
That context piece you mentioned, that sounds like where the real consistency and compliance get locked in. That's where these knowledge blocks come in.
Precisely. Knowledge blocks, KBs, are basically reusable, pre-written chunks of verified, auditable information. You record it correctly once, and then you can use it in hundreds of different prompts later. For a bank, these KBs are absolutely foundational for ensuring compliance and consistency across the board.
What kind of things go into KB?
Well, it could be your official Bank Secrecy Act, BSA policy summary. It could be the exact legally verified disclosure language required under Reg Z or Reg B. Your official brand, voice, and tone guidelines, making sure the bank always sounds professional and compliant, not suddenly casual. Detailed, verified descriptions of your products and services. This is your bank's proprietary high-value content, your internal IP. By injecting these verified KBs into every relevant prompt, you make sure that every single AI output, whether it's a marketing email going out or an internal training document, is grounded in your audited, current, internal knowledge and regulatory guidance.
So you're basically solving the AI hallucination problem by feeding it the verified truth up front.
You got it. You provide the ground truth.
Okay, so you have the framework for writing good prompts, and you have the KBs with the verified content. Where does this all live? That's the prompt library.
Exactly. The prompt library becomes that necessary central hub. The systematic single place that houses all of this audited content, the best prompts using the framework, and all the verified KBs. Using something accessible, maybe a collaborative tool like Google Docs with clear tabs, or maybe a more formal internal knowledge management platform, it just makes it easy for the entire team.
From the brand new hire to the chief compliance officer.
Everyone. They can all access the best verified prompts and KBs easily. This ensures everyone is singing from the same hymn sheet using the same high-quality compliant engine, which from a risk management perspective is fundamental.
Okay, here's where, for me, it gets really strategic, mapping out the actual workflows. Because you can have the world's best prompt library, but if you don't actually know where the organization's time is being spent...
Right, you don't know where to aim the engine effectively. You absolutely need to make the invisible visible, and it starts with what they call the process map. This is just a high-level list of all the recurring tasks, the meetings, the variable work that happens every day, week, quarter.
So for a bank, that might be synthesizing the quarterly board report data, preparing for the monthly branch security audit, the recurring social media content schedule.
All of those. The simple act of just listing out this work, mapping it, shows leaders exactly where the big-time sinks are, and that tells you where applying this AI engine can have the maximum measurable impact. Then from that high-level process map, you drill down, you create workflow maps. These are the detailed step-by-step breakdowns of a single item from the process map.
So taking that board report example, the workflow map would list every step, gathering data from departments, validating it, drafting the summary, getting approvals, formatting.
Exactly. Every single step involved in, say, preparing a new loan product disclosure. From drafting the initial text based on product specs, routing it for compliance review, getting legal sign-off, finalizing formatting, all of it.
And the real magic, the connection, happens when you match those high-performing prompts, the ones built using your verified, compliance-vetted KBs, to specific steps within that detailed workflow map.
That's it. You're systemizing expertise at scale.
You're making sure the best compliant way to do that specific task is embedded right into the workflow, ready for AI assistance.
That's the entire cohesive system clicking together. And the next level of efficiency you unlock with this is the custom GPT.
Ah, okay. Heard about these.
Yeah. Custom GPTs are essentially specialized mini apps. They're tailored to very specific, highly repeatable tasks within your bank. They're easy to reuse, easy to share across the organization, and crucially, they come preloaded with the necessary instructions, the prompt framework, and the specific KBs needed for that task.
So you could build like a BSA training assistant GPT or a marketing disclosure review GPT.
Exactly those kinds of things. When you connect your prompting engine, the framework, and KBs with your process and workflow maps, the logical result is this functional system that can be encapsulated into these reusable, role-specific custom GPTs. It makes using the system incredibly efficient.
Okay, this whole shift, though,
Yeah.
going from maybe one person playing with ChatGPT to this organization-wide system. With auditable knowledge blocks, central prompt libraries, reusable custom GPTs, that sounds like it requires significant internal structure, governance.
It does.
And for community banks, operating under these really strict, non-negotiable compliance rules, trying to build and implement this kind of cohesive system quickly, well, yeah, it could feel overwhelming, maybe even bordering on risky if not done right.
It absolutely can feel that way, and the risk is real. The banking environment is unique because the penalty for getting compliance wrong is just so incredibly high. You cannot afford to let a knowledge block be out of date or unverified. You can't have a prompt accidentally generate marketing copy that violates a fair lending principle or a consumer protection regulation. That level of governance, that verification layer, it has to be baked into the system from the very beginning, not bolted on afterwards. And look, this is precisely where having trusted advisors, folks with decades of real-world experience in the banking sector, becomes indispensable. Teams like Eric Cooks and his colleagues at WSI, they understand the structure processes required. They know the compliance guidance intimately. They can help build these sophisticated AI productivity systems securely.
So they ensure the foundation is solid first.
Rock solid. Audit ready. Compliant before you try to scale these powerful tools across the entire enterprise. Because building these KBs and prompt libraries correctly, it requires deep regulatory rigor. And that requires banking expertise, not just knowing how to use the AI tech.
Okay, let's pivot a bit now. Moving from internal productivity gains to the bigger macro strategic view, this stuff is crucial for bank executives who are dealing with competitive pressures and thinking about long-term capital strategy. We're already seeing market pressure mounting, right? You mentioned big fintech players like Salesforce are publicly saying they're doing 30, 40, even 50% of their work using AI right now.
That's a huge signal. And it brings us directly to Jeremiah Ouyang's really groundbreaking thesis on AI agents. This, I think, fundamentally changes how banks will need to think about marketing, sales, and customer service in the honestly very near future. His first thesis is kind of a strategic gut punch. AI agents mean the information comes to you.
Meaning the old model, where a human customer has to manually go to 10 different bank websites, click through apps, fill out endless forms, try to compare the fine print on loans or accounts. That's dying.
Functionally dying, yes. The human painstakingly traversing the web is being replaced by their personal AI agent, their primary agent. In the very near future, many of your customers' routine tasks, finding the best CD rate, comparing mortgage options, maybe even initiating simple transactions, will be done for them by this agent. Faster, more thoroughly, and easier than any human comparison shopper could ever manage.
Wow.
And here's the really critical strategic implication for bank marketers, for lenders. The future visitor to your website, the entity shopping for a mortgage, comparing CD rates, or looking for a small business loan. It might not be a human being.
It'll be their agent, shopping for them.
Exactly.
Okay, that leads straight into his second thesis, the decoupling of content. Explain that.
Right. So all that content your bank creates, your product overviews, service descriptions, your community impact stories, your branch hours, all of it will be gathered up by the customer's agent. And then it gets reassembled, remixed, presented in whatever interface the consumer wants. Maybe they want it read out by voice, maybe summarized in a short video, maybe just text bullet points. Multimodal.
Yeah. And the kicker.
The kicker is, this information exchange, this shopping, often happens without the consumer ever visiting your website directly, maybe without seeing your ads, possibly without any human interaction at all in those early comparison stages. That fundamentally changes the game for brand visibility, for lead generation, for marketing ROI calculations. We probably need to define these AI agents a bit more clearly so executives understand the capability and, frankly, the risk profile.
Good idea.
An AI agent, at its core, is an autonomous software system. It can perceive its environment, like scraping websites for data. It can decide on a course of action based on its goals, and it can take that action to achieve a specified goal, like compiling the best mortgage rates. And crucially, it has the ability to learn and adapt over time. Now, the more advanced form we need to watch is orchestration agents. Think of these as manager agents. They're the systems that can actually recruit and manage other specialized agents called execution agents to perform specific tasks.
Give me a banking example.
Okay, imagine an orchestration agent designed to manage a customer's entire financial life. It might recruit a specific savings agent whose only job is to constantly scan the market for the best FDIC-insured CD rates that meet the customer's criteria. It might recruit a risk agent to monitor their credit usage patterns and flag potential issues. It could even employ a payment agent to execute pre-approved bill payments or transfers. The orchestration agent is the conductor managing the specialized players.
Okay. If the customer interacting with the bank is potentially an agent, the implications are just huge, especially around authentication, security, liability.
Massive. We're moving rapidly into an era where we're going to need Know Your Agent, or KYA.
KYA, like KYC, but for bots.
Essentially, yes. Yang made this point strongly. The next evolution of KYC, Know Your Customer, will have to fundamentally involve agent authentication. These agents will need to be somehow certified, cryptographically perhaps, as belonging to a specific verified human being linked to a government ID. Your bank's CRM system. It's going to need a new auditable field for that certified agent ID, linking every autonomous transaction initiated by an agent back to a legally responsible human party. The security and infrastructure requirements for this level of authentication are immense.
This really does sound like the dawn of what they called omni-intelligence.
Yeah.
And that performance gap Yang highlighted, it just validates the urgency for banks to figure this out. Let's touch on those AI cultures he outlined.
Yeah, that gap is a serious strategic dilemma, especially when thinking about capital allocation. On one end, you have the AI native startups. These are the lean unicorns, maybe operating with a crazy ratio like 10 software agents for every one human employee. And they're achieving revenue per employee RPE figures around $3.4 million. Now, compare that $3.4 million RPE to the average for a top 10 traditional SaaS company. That's closer to $610,000 RPE.
Wow, that's a 5.7x difference in efficiency? That's
startling. It is. But, and this is the crucial question for a bank, how much of that $3.4 million RPE advantage gets immediately eaten up by the non-negotiable compliance burden, the risk management overhead, the audit costs? That $3.4 million assumes almost zero regulatory friction, which just isn't reality in banking. That's the core tension right there for the bank executive. Most community banks, realistically, fall into Ouyang's AI forward category. They're trying to combine AI with their existing compliant workflows. They're not planning mass layoffs this year, as he put it. Or maybe they're AI followers kind of waiting for clearer ROI data or more defined regulations before making big moves. Very few can afford to be AI resistors trying to stop it, but equally, very few can realistically achieve that pure AI native speed and efficiency given the regulatory environment.
So that speed advantage the natives have, it has to be constantly weighed against the absolute necessity for governance, for auditing, for security, for verification and banking.
Always.
This naturally brings up the employment question. The robots are taking our jobs, fear. Alex Kantrowitz and Mike Kaput apparently address this.
Yeah, they argue the common conversation about job losses is kind of incomplete because it focuses only on the outcome of the job itself rather than the strategic action being taken, which is automating the task.
So the real debate isn't just jobs lost versus jobs gained.
It's more nuanced. It's augment versus automate. Do you use AI to augment the human employee, making them more productive, capable of higher value work? Or do you use AI to fully automate their tasks with the goal of eliminating the role? For most institutions, especially relationship-focused ones like community banks, the smart strategic move seems to be automate the tasks, not the job.
How does that play out?
You identify that 80% of tactical repetitive work we talked about, the report generation, the data gathering, comparing compliance documents, you give as much of that as possible to the AI systems you build, and then you move the human employee. You upskill them, refocus them onto something different, something higher value, something more uniquely human. Complex relationship management, strategic problem solving, community leadership, innovation.
So the bank grows its overall capacity and capability.
Exactly. Grows its capability, handles more volume, maybe enters new markets. potentially with the same headcount. You're expanding what the bank can do without necessarily increasing labor costs dramatically. And you're keeping your valuable human talent focused on the complex human problems AI can't solve.
Okay, but going back to agents for a second, this concept of AI agents operating autonomously, orchestrating complex financial transactions, maybe even managing payments directly. That Skyfire example they mentioned sounds like it.
That immediately throws up huge red flags for compliance and security in a financial institution, doesn't it?
Absolutely. If an agent messes up, if it misallocates funds based on flawed data, or makes a decision that results in a Regulation B violation, where does the liability fall? How do you even audit that autonomous decision path?
Precisely. The sheer speed and autonomy that defines an AI native startup is, in many ways, fundamentally antithetical to the required governance structures inherent in banking. It just is. When you have software agents autonomously buying, selling, managing money, moving funds, the transaction audit trail, the compliance oversight, the security protocols, the verification layers, all of that must be built into the system from day one. It cannot be an afterthought. It's absolutely non-negotiable. So community bank executives need to understand this clearly. Implementing autonomous agents, even for internal tasks initially, requires strategic help to secure those systems properly from a banking perspective. You really need to partner with teams who bring not just the technical AI knowledge, but also those decades of hard-won experience navigating the specific banking regulatory environment. That vetting process for any partner or advisor is crucial.
Making sure they truly understand the difference.
Yes. Ensuring they understand the critical difference between the raw speed of AI native innovation and the absolute required governance necessary to adopt these capabilities safely, without jeopardizing the bank's charter, its reputation, or its customers' trust.
All right, let's transition now to how banks can ensure that when they do use AI, especially for content generation or internal knowledge sharing, they're not just creating, well, generic mush, or worse, inaccurate AI slop. Taylor Rady's session on Expertise Squared really hit this. The point was, AI's average output isn't good enough. We need better proprietary inputs to get better, actually competitive results.
Exactly. We need to leverage the absolute goldmine of proprietary, often unstructured data that already exists inside the bank. We're talking about transcripts of customer interviews, recordings of internal expert meetings, old successful loan campaign documents, internal policy manuals gathering dust on a server somewhere. The CFUD framework Capture, Find, Understand, Do This provides a strategic way to harness all that unique internal knowledge and make your AI outputs exceptional. Make them reflect your bank's expertise, not just the generic web, moving past the average.
Okay, let's break CFUD down. Start with Capture. How does a bank turn that knowledge locked in people's heads or buried in old documents into something reusable, something auditable?
Capture is all about converting that expertise, often tacit knowledge, into a digital, usable format. We know speaking is way faster than typing, right? Like 3 to 4 times faster. So tools like Fireflies, Otter.ai, Descript, they transcribe speech to text automatically. Imagine recording an exit interview with your retiring chief credit officer who has 40 years of local market knowledge, or transcribing a detailed consultation session with your top commercial lender talking about structuring complex deals.
They're digitizing decades of experience.
Exactly. Transforming that valuable tacit knowledge into a reusable, indexed, and importantly, auditable digital asset. This also helps you capture and analyze the authentic brand voice directly from your leaders, which you can then feed into your marketing knowledge blocks for consistency.
Okay, so you've captured it. Now you need to find it when you actually need it. I guess this helps tackle those dreaded information silos that seem to plague every large organization.
Precisely. Find is all about layering AI search capabilities over your existing knowledge management systems, or even just your shared drives. Banks have decades of critical standard operating procedures, SOPs, records of past marketing campaigns, crucial regulatory guidelines. But they're often scattered everywhere. Old servers, different SharePoint sites, personal drives.
Yeah, finding anything specific can be a nightmare.
Right. But tools like Google Gemini for Workspace, or enterprise search solutions like Coveo, or even platforms like Notion with AI features, they let you ask natural language questions across all those disparate file types and locations. You can have something like, show me all BSA training materials created in the last 5 years that specifically discuss correspondent banking risks. And the AI finds it instantly. It breaks down those deep, incredibly costly information silos.
Okay, capture, find. The third step is understand. This feels like where the bank's internal IP, its unique knowledge, really becomes a powerful, differentiated competitive advantage. The core of that expertise squared idea,
It absolutely is. Understand is about building your own internal subject matter assistants. Think of them as specialized custom GPTs or GEMs, but trained exclusively on your bank's own in-house expertise, your policies, your proprietary data, your intellectual property.
So instead of asking the public chat GPT about a regulation.
You ask your own proprietary private AI assistant that knows your bank's specific interpretation and policies related to that regulation. This internal assistant can explain complex technical details 24/7 using your language. It can help onboard new staff by answering their specific technical questions instantly based on your materials. It can even connect the dots between complex concepts like analyzing the interplay between Regulation B requirements, your internal fair lending policy, and the specifics of a new product you're about to roll out. Key tools mentioned here were things like Google's Notebook LM, which is great for synthesizing insights across hundreds of your own uploaded source documents with citations, or getguru.com, which uses specialized knowledge agents built just for this internal expertise purpose.
And finally, the fourth step, do. This is where you take all that captured, found, and understood expertise and actually scale it into high-capacity output, right?
Right. Do is about taking action, executing tasks, and importantly, enforcing standards organization-wide. Once you've captured the raw expertise, found the relevant policies and data, built the internal assistant to understand the nuance, then you use AI execution tools. Things like Grammarly for Business, Jasper, or Writer.com. You use them to help complete tasks faster, generate compliant content drafts, automate parts of workflows, but always while enforcing your specific, pre-approved brand voice and, critically, your accuracy constraints, fed by those verified knowledge blocks we talked about,
So you're getting the capacity boost from AI.
while retaining strict human quality control and compliance, enforced by your verified internal knowledge base.
Now, for community banks, those final 5 tips mentioned on governing this knowledge management process sound absolutely critical. Non-negotiable, really, given the strict regulatory environment. Let's detail those.
Yeah, they really boil down to security, accountability, and just plain legal and regulatory rigor. Tip number 2 was establishing a single source of truth for all core company knowledge. Policies, procedures, product facts. Everyone needs to operate from the exact same up-to-date factual and regulatory foundation. No ambiguity. Tip 3, and this is huge, is creating mandated verification protocols. This cannot be skipped in banking. Every knowledge block, every policy summary, every piece of regulatory guidance that goes into your system must be reviewed, verified, and formally attested to by a designated, responsible expert.
Like the chief compliance officer,
Yeah, it's legal.
product manager.
Exactly. Someone with the authority and expertise has to sign off before it gets published into the central prompt library for use. Tools like getguru.com apparently have features showing the verification status, the date it was verified, and who verified it. That level of transparency and accountability shows how critical it is to validate the correctness and currency of information before it ever touches a customer or a regulator. Without that human legal attestation layer, the whole system is fundamentally flawed and carries significant risk.
Makes sense. Then tip 4 was about prioritizing privacy. That seems obvious but critical.
Absolutely critical. How is customer data, internal strategy documents, anything sensitive, being used and protected across all these interconnected AI tools? You need absolute certainty that your proprietary or sensitive data is never being used to train some public AI model somewhere. Data governance is paramount.
And tip 5 was about portability. Thinking ahead.
Yeah, basically, how difficult is it to get your accumulated knowledge base out of one system and potentially into another if you need to switch vendors down the road? You're building an incredibly valuable proprietary corporate asset here in this verified knowledge base. You need to ensure you maintain absolute control and ownership over it and aren't locked into one vendor forever. Look, the CFUD model, especially with its heavy emphasis on those verification protocols and prioritizing privacy, that's the secure blueprint for how to scale AI effectively in a regulated industry like finance. For community banks, this level of detailed governance isn't just a nice-to-have suggestion, it's an absolute prerequisite for using these tools safely and soundly. Given the immense stakes involved customer data security, protecting your bank's intellectual property, staying compliant with complex regulations, establishing these secure, verified knowledge bases, it's just critical. And let's be clear, implementing the full CFUD model, especially getting those verification layers and privacy controls built securely and efficiently, that's a complex organizational change management challenge. It really requires a sophisticated understanding of both modern AI architectures and deep, decades-long banking expertise to implement these systems with all the necessary compliance guardrails in place from the start. Again, this is where partnering with teams who possess that unique combination of knowledge, like Eric Cook and his colleagues who live and breathe banking compliance, becomes probably the quickest and certainly the safest path to adopting these powerful capabilities while actively mitigating regulatory risk.
And finally, wrapping up the content streams, we saw how AI is already impacting external execution, like marketing and SEO. Will Reynolds apparently stressed that if your bank isn't getting traffic from AI search results,
It probably means the large language models are already answering your potential customers' basic questions directly without ever sending them to your website.
ouch. So what's the countermove for banks?
Banks need to leverage their unique proprietary customer data. Analyze your call center transcripts, look at branch feedback forms, study support tickets, understand the precise questions your specific customers are asking, identify the gaps the LLMs aren't filling well. Then use that insight to win on channels like social media with authentic personal branding from your local experts, and create hyperlocal, high-quality content that the generic LLMs simply cannot replicate. Focus on community connection. And looking even further ahead, the future of content itself is shifting rapidly with AI video. PJ Ace's session highlighted this new paradigm. Tools like OpenAI's Sora, genre.ai, they allow for incredibly rapid, creative video content creation from just simple text prompts.
So the strategic question for community banks becomes,
How do you use this emerging AI video capability efficiently and effectively to tell your unique, hyper-local story? The story of community support, personalized service, trusted local advice. How do you use it to stand out in a very crowded digital landscape? And, of course, how do you integrate your necessary compliance reviews seamlessly into that faster video production workflow? Hashtag outro.
wow. We have covered some massive strategic ground today, really translating those cutting-edge, sometimes overwhelming insights from a MAICON into what feel like actionable steps, specifically for the highly regulated community banking environment. The key strategic shift seems crystal clear. You've got to move from being that reactive soloist, maybe using one tool here and there, to becoming a proactive conductor, someone creating a unified, repeatable, and crucially compliant AI system across the bank.
Yeah, and recognizing that accelerating Move 37 moment driven by those exponential scaling laws isn't just interesting, it's an imperative. And internalizing the need to scale your bank's unique expertise securely using structured frameworks like CFUD, capture, find, understand, do, always supported by those rigorous verification protocols we discussed. Ultimately, the future of work, certainly in knowledge industries like banking, looks like a human plus AI collaboration. It's really defined by augmentation, making your people better, faster, more capable, not just raw automation aimed at replacing the human role entirely.
Right. AI handles the capacity drain, the repetitive tasks, the synthesis of mountains of data.
Allowing your valuable human employees to focus on the uniquely human elements, the complex interpersonal communication, the nuanced negotiation, providing that trusted local market leadership, driving strategic innovation.
Which means AI literacy truly understanding its capabilities, yes, but also its limitations and the absolute necessity for governance that becomes the #1 skill needed for bank executives today.
Couldn't agree more.
So as you, our listener, look at your own institution, thinking about the demanding compliance hurdles, the security requirements you live with every day, I want to leave you with one provocative thought to maybe mull over on the drive home. What is the one task you can identify in your process map, that recurring, high-effort, time-consuming task that requires detailed, specific input? What's the one task that if you could automate and systemize it using compliant knowledge blocks in that CFUD framework, what would free up the most significant amount of your time, allowing you to step up and become a true AI-forward leader at your institution?
That really is the essential starting question, isn't it? The one that immediately impacts your P&L, your team's capacity, and your strategic focus. And look, if you found yourself nodding along today, especially when we talked about the challenges of ensuring compliance, setting up verification workflows, building a secure knowledge base that can actually pass an audit, then we highly encourage you to reach out. Get in touch with Eric Cook and his team at WSI and the Linked Banker. They are genuinely trusted advisors. They have deep, decades-long experience working specifically in the banking industry, navigating its unique challenges.
They get it.
They get it. They're ready to help you navigate this incredibly complex landscape of AI adoption, doing it strategically, yes, but also securely. They can help discuss how these specific MAICON insights, especially around critical areas like knowledge block governance or vetting AI agents safely, can be put to practical, compliant use right there at your institution.
Go explore these ideas further.
Yeah.
Map out your work. Start thinking about how to build that conductor system for your bank today. Thanks for joining the deep dive.